Hey there, thanks for being here. It's the first week of August, and that means it's time for my monthly Cape Coral real estate market update video. I do one of these videos every single month on this channel. Basically, what we're going to do here in the next 45 minutes, an hour, is really break down the numbers and the facts and the figures and the statistics of the Cape Coral real estate market, specifically focusing on what's happened in this last month. So we're going to be talking a lot about July 2024. I'm going to give you the broad overview stats of the entire market, and then we're going to break things down by category. We're going to talk about off-water homes, single-family homes not on the water. We're going to talk about Gulf access homes, of course. We'll also talk about condos and townhomes and vacant lots. And then we'll also touch on the rental market here in the city of Cape Coral. And then I'm going to finish everything up with advice to you if maybe you're a buyer in this real estate market, as well as advice for sellers in this Cape Coral real estate market. So make sure you stick around to the end for that. But if you're not familiar with this channel, my name is Dustin Guthrie. I'm a near 20-year resident here in Southwest Florida. I'm also a near 20-year full-time real estate broker here in Southwest Florida. And I do one of these videos every single month, but these are in addition to the weekly videos that I do, where I just give you a lot of really good information on a weekly basis. I do a variety of different topics. Sometimes it has to do with real estate. Sometimes it doesn't have to do with real estate. Maybe it's about insurance, or maybe about some new project that's happening here in either Cape Coral or somewhere in Southwest Florida. So if you're interested in Southwest Florida, maybe you're considering moving here, moving to Fort Myers, moving to Cape Coral, moving to Punta Gorda, wherever, or maybe you even just live here now and you're just wanting to keep up on what's happening here in Southwest Florida, I invite you to reach over and hit that subscribe button so you can stick around for these every single week. I would love to have you around, and I think you'll get a lot out of these videos. I put a lot of time and effort into these things on a weekly basis, just trying to create a lot of value for the folks that watch this channel. I know if I can give you a lot of great information and create a lot of value for you, that odds are you're probably going to remember me when the time does come when you do need a realtor here in Southwest Florida, if you're buying or selling a place. And certainly my contact information is right there on the screen, but it's also down in the description of this video, and you can call, text, or email me anytime. I would love to hear about your real estate goals and tell you how I can help you out a little bit with those, and would love to have you around in the future, so make sure you're subscribed. But all that said, let's get right into this. I always start these videos off just for fun by showing you the lowest sales of the month for the Cape Coral real estate market, and then the highest sales of the entire month. So again, we're talking about July of 2024. So let's dive right into that, starting with the lowest sales of the month. All right, so here we go with the lowest sales in the entire city of Cape Coral for the month of July 2024. I'm going to give you the lowest condo that sold, then the lowest single family home, and then we'll do the same with the highest condo slash townhome sale and the highest single family home that sold in the month of July. So let's start off on the low sales. Lowest condo sale was this one over here at 1111 Cape Coral Parkway West, Unit 105. That's in the Dana Court condominium complex over there in the southwest section of Cape Coral. It was a little 55 and older age-restricted condo there in the southwest. It was just over 900 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths, built in 1985. Needed a lot of work inside. This one was listed at $110,000. It was on the market for about 3 months, 85 days, and ended up selling on the 19th of July for $95,000. But I actually showed this condo not too long ago to one of my buyers. And Tom, if you're watching, we went and saw this condo, and it was definitely beat up on the inside, if you recall. But $95,000 is nothing to shake a stick at. Definitely needed some work in there, but looks like they got a pretty good price on that. So congratulations to the buyers and the sellers on that. Usually those 55 and older age-restricted condos will oftentimes sell for a little bit less than a traditional condo without that age restriction. So it's not surprising that the lowest sale for condos this month was an age-restricted 55 and older condo. But again, congratulations to the buyers on that one. I'm sure they've got some work to do in there, but that'll make a really nice little unit there right on Cape Coral Parkway in the southwest. All right, let's jump over to the lowest single family home that sold in the entire month of July, and that's this one. This time we're over in the northeast. We're at 1614 Northeast 12th Street. It's a house out there. This one's actually a wood frame home. We don't see those too often these days. Usually our homes are concrete block constructed homes, but this one was a wood frame home. 1-car garage built in 1985. It's a bigger home. It actually had a pool, but just under 2,100 square feet of living area. It's a 4-bedroom with a den, 2 full baths, and it had some fire damage in there, so that's not surprising that that one was the lowest sale of the month. But it was listed at $214,900. It was on the market for just 4 days before it went under contract, and then finally sold right at the end of July on the 30th for $201,000. Obviously, we don't have very many pictures of the inside. I'm sure there was plenty of smoke damage in there from that kitchen fire, but it had some nice things in it. It had some impact windows. It had a newer water heater, newer AC. The roof wasn't too old. Again, it was a wood frame home, so it's a little bit of an inferior construction to the concrete block, but $201,000 was the low sale this month for single family homes. And it's been over the last 6 or so months, I think we've only had maybe one or so month where it's dipped under that $200,000 mark. So it's good to see even the low end sticking above that $200,000 mark for the most part. But this one at just under $100 a square foot for a pool home, certainly a pretty good buy, despite what that inevitably was the damage that was in there and the work that needed to be done to it. So definitely congratulations to the buyers and the sellers for this one. I'm sure there's work to be done in there, but this would make a nice rental or even a primary residence. So congrats to the buyers on that. All right, let's dive over to the highest sales of the month of July for the entire city of Cape Coral. All right, so the top sales of the month of July, again, we're going to start off with condos. And condos, I'm going to do the same thing when we get into condos, into the statistics, but I basically lump everything together. Condos, no matter high-rise, low-rise, mid-rise, townhomes, attached villas, I'm lumping all of those together into one category. And so the high sale this month was a townhouse over in Cape Harbor. It's in the new construction section of Cape Harbor over there. It's called Marina Villas. I think last month's top sale was also in Marina Villas. They've got some really nice brand new units over there that are just now coming to the point where they can get their certificate of occupancy and close. So they've been under contract for a while they were built. But this one on the water over there, 5811 Shell Cove Drive, Unit 111. This is a 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath townhouse with a 1-car attached garage right there on a Gulf access canal. It's a great location there in Cape Harbor, and this one was listed at $849,400 and ended up selling a little bit more. I think they put some seller paid closing costs, so this one sold a little bit above that list price at $858,305, and that was the top sale for condos and townhomes in the month of July. But these are really nice units over there. If you've got time to run over there, if you're in town, I would definitely check them out. They've got phase 2 that's going on right now. A lot of beautiful townhomes, and this one's a 3-story, but they've also got some really nice attached villas and things like that have private pools over there. But $858,305, that was the top condo sale this month. All right, let's jump over to the fun one. That's the high sale of the month for single family homes, which is the high sale overall, of course, for the entire city of Cape Coral in the month of July. And we're back to Cape Harbor again. This time we're in the single family home section of Cape Harbor. That section over there is called Harbor Preserve. But this one was a 4.995. It was listed at $4.995 million. It's a 4-bedroom with a den, 4 and 2 half baths. It's not a brand new construction this time. This one was built in 2014, so it's not terribly old. But typically with these high sales we've seen in the last 6 or so months have been new construction custom homes. But this one was built in 2014, so it's 10 years old. Had just over 6,500 square feet of living area under air conditioning in there. Beautiful pool package on there, again, on a Gulf access canal there in Cape Harbor. And again, listed at $4.995 million, sold for over $1 million under that list price at $3.925. This was an all-cash deal. They got it done in just over 3 months, 110 days on the market before this thing went pending. But again, really beautiful property over there on a Gulf access canal in Cape Harbor, and this was an absolute stunning property. It was built in 2014, sold for $3.925 million. So we're consistently, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 months in the last 12 months that I've done this, these monthly Cape Coral real estate market reports, we've hit or exceeded that $3 million mark. So congratulations to the buyers and the sellers and their agents, for that matter, on this just under $4 million resale property there in Cape Harbor. It was the top sale this month at $3.925 million. All right, so with that, let's dive into the statistics of the Cape Coral real estate market for July 2024. As always, I'm going to start off with the broad statistics, and then we're going to take those numbers and break them down by different property categories. So let's start off with the entire market stats, the overall general market stats for Cape Coral for July 2024. Okay, so let's start off with the entire market. Now, I'm getting into just residential properties at first. We're going to touch on lots later in the video, but let's start off with residential properties. So basically everything that's a single family home, condo, townhome. There may be even a couple manufactured homes. We don't have too many manufactured homes in the city of Cape Coral, but I'm including basically everything that's not multifamily or vacant lots. So residential properties. We sold 508 of these properties in the month of July 2024. It's down slightly from the previous month. June, we sold 524, but we're actually up compared to last year. If you take a look at this graph, this is a 2-year graph. Right there in the middle of that graph is July of 2023. So last year in July, we sold 452 residential properties, and this month, a year later, we've sold 508. And if you go back 2 years, July of 2022, that was when sort of the market just started to slow down after that really crazy time of about really 2019, late 2019 through 2021. Started to slow down after our main spring winter season in 2022. So July 2022, we sold 530. So we've basically somewhat on track to where we were a couple of years ago. And believe it or not, if you take the first 7 months of this year, of 2024, so January through July, we've sold a total of 3,593 residential properties. If you took that same 7 months from last year in 2023, we only sold 3,485. So it may not feel like this real estate market is kind of chugging along pretty good. But we've sold 108 more properties at this point in the year versus last year. That's about 3.1%. Now, the pricing is a little bit different, and certainly we've got our inventory issues that I'll get into in a minute. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as we get into the rest of these numbers. I mean, this real estate market is still doing fairly well. We're still in a buyer's market very much. And again, I'm going to get into that when we talk about the advice for buyers at the end of the video. Make sure you stick around for that, especially if you are a buyer. But nevertheless, this real estate market has put up some really decent numbers this year, and let's continue to get into that. Let's talk about the total market median price for residential properties. So out of those 508 sales last month, what was the overall median price? Well, take a look at this graph. This again is a 2-year graph, and we're certainly down a little bit, but overall it's been pretty flat for the last couple of years. It's down a little bit again, but the median price for this past month in July was $379,950, and believe it or not, that's actually a 2-year low in median price. We've kind of dipped up and down a little bit depending on the time of year, but out of those 508 residential sales, $379,950 was right smack dab in the middle. And if you take it back to July of 2023, we were at $405,000. We were over $400,000 for median total price. So that represents about a 6.1% decrease in median sale price from July of 2023 to July of 2024. If you take it back all the way to July of 2022, the median price back then, when, again, we were still kind of at the tip top of that market cycle, we were at $415,000 for a median price in July of 2022. So we're down about 8.4% from July of 2022 compared to where we were this past month in July 2024. So we're definitely seeing some price softening. What this graph doesn't take into account, again, and I've kind of harped on it a little bit in the last few videos, but inflation. You know, we've had a couple of years where inflation has been significantly high, whether or not you believe the government's numbers or not. One way or the other, it's been pretty high, and so you really ought to, because real estate's generally a pretty good hedge against inflation. You really could probably add those inflation numbers to these price decreases to get a general idea of how far the market's actually corrected at this point. So if you're talking about, we're down 6.1% from this time last year, you can probably stack another 4 or 5%, maybe more, on top of that when it comes to inflation. So we very well may have corrected upwards of 10, 11, 12% in the last 12 months. So it's a good thing to keep in mind, definitely, especially for the folks out there that are looking for this big, massive correction. We're still selling a lot of properties out there, but if you take everything into consideration, we've already had a pretty significant correction as it is, and we're still selling a lot of properties. So, barring some unforeseen situation with the broader economy, if we go into a massive recession or something like that, I think prices will continue to be soft for the rest of the year. But we're not really seeing anything that indicates we're about to go through a big, massive further correction than we've already seen. But $379,950 was the median price for the month of July 2024. Let's jump over to inventory. I'm going to talk about each individual category's inventory when we talk about the other sales stats. But the total market inventory, obviously the news cycle for this particular market in 2024 has been about the inventory, about the active listed for sale properties that were out there. But take a look at this graph again, going back 2 years. We've made some progress. We hit a high mark, and it was pretty concerning back in the middle spring of this year. That inventory number, those active listings, continue to go up, and then we hit a high point back in April where we had 4,301 properties actively on the market in April of 2024. That's a lot of properties, but month over month since then, we've seen that inventory go down. So we're in a very clear pattern right now of decreasing inventory. And in July of 2024, last month, we had just 3,830 properties actively listed for sale. So we're down 11% from that high point in April, which is good news, especially if you're a seller. You want to see that inventory come down. We're still very, very significantly up from where we were last year. July 2023, we had 3,120 actively listed properties on there. So we're still up 22.8% from where we were 12 months ago. And so we still got some work to do to bring that number down, get into a more manageable level of inventory. If you're looking at 2 years ago, again, July 2022, which is the first bar on this graph, we only had 2,481 properties on the market back 2 years ago. So we are up 54.3% in 2 years and 24 months. So we've still got some work to do, but the good news is we're heading in the right direction on that inventory front. And all things considered, I think it's pretty safe to say that we'll continue to see that reduction maybe until the winter time. The inventory usually kind of ticks up a little bit as we get back into our main selling season at the end of the year and the beginning of next year. So we'll see probably some more reduction in inventory as we close out the rest of this year. But overall, it's good. It's a good sign that we're seeing these numbers come down a little bit. All right, let's dive into the individual categories. So let's start breaking these numbers down by individual property categories. I always start off with off-water single-family homes. It's the largest segment of our Cape Coral real estate market. So let's jump right into off-water single families. All right, so off-water single-family homes. Again, this category of property is the largest segment of the Cape Coral real estate market. Of those 508 residential sales that we had in the month of July 2024, 353 of them were off-water single-family homes. So basically anything that's not on a body of water. So take a look at this graph again, 2-year graph, 353. Again, these are just the number of monthly sales. We've jumped around a little bit, but if you take it back 2 years, we're just a little bit under the levels that we saw in 2022. 2022 in July, we sold 373 of these homes. We sold 353 this past month, and we're actually up a fair amount from where we were in July of 2023. July of 2023, we only sold 308. So 12 months, we're up just a little bit under 50 properties at 353 total homes for sale. When you talk about homes that have pools versus homes that do not have pools, it's usually about a third. And that's what we saw this past month. So of these 353 off-water single-family homes that sold, 111 of them had a pool, and that represents about 31.4%. That's pretty consistent on any given month. But again, if you want to talk about the first 7 months of the year, the first 7 months of 2024 versus the first 7 months of 2023, we're up a little bit, not quite as sharply as the entire broader market, but in January through July of last year in 2023, we sold 2,277 of these off-water single-family homes. And in the first same months of this year in 2024, we've sold 2,316. So we've got about 39 more homes that we've sold at this point this year versus that same point last year. That represents about a 1.7% increase. So we're still selling quite a few homes there in the Cape Coral real estate market, and 353 is a pretty decent month, to say the least. But let's jump over to the median price and see what we're doing there. So take a look at this graph. This is, again, the median price. This is one of the flattest graphs that we'll see today. This category has remained fairly flat, although we are down a little bit. But last month, the median sale price for off-water single-family homes was $361,500, and we're down a little bit. About 12 months ago, in July of 2023, we were at $375,000 for these sales. So we're down about 3.6%. Again, that doesn't include inflation. And if you look at going back 2 years to the July 2022 number, we were at $395,000 for this property category. So in 2 years, we're down 8.5%. Again, plus whatever those 2 years of inflation might have been, 8, 9, 10 maybe percent for that inflation number. So we've still got a pretty significant correction overall, even though it's only on paper 8.5%. You add that inflation, and we may have corrected, close to 20% already. So still somewhat healthy numbers at 361.5, but again, prices have been soft this entire summer so far, and they'll probably continue to be right around that. Maybe they'll go down another percent or two, but I don't anticipate any more large significant dip for these prices. These homes are generally floated mostly by the new construction homes, and the new construction homes, the pricing has stayed relatively flat, even though the builders out there are offering some more incentives. But $361,500 was the median price for July of 2024 for off-water single-family homes. Let's break that down further by pool homes and non-pool homes. So take a look at this graph. This is only a 12-month graph, but these are off-water pool homes. And I thought there's something very significant. We'll look at this, and then we'll look at the off-water homes without pools. So the median price for a off-water pool home in Cape Coral last month was $416,000. That's the lowest it's been in the last 12 months. It's kind of bounced around a little bit, but last July we were at $440,000. So we're down about 5.5% from where we were in July of 2023. But the high point on this graph was September of last year, September of 2023, when it was $480,000. So we've come down about 13.3% since that high mark in September. Now, the next couple of months it could raise back up, and maybe we'll be back to 440 or 460, something like that. It kind of bounces around a little bit. So it's not a hard and fast rule that, prices across the board are down 13.3% since that high point. Bounces around a little bit. But the point is pool homes, we're seeing a little bit more of a sharp contrast in the decrease in prices versus the homes without a pool. So let's look at that graph. The homes without a pool, off-water, median price for an off-water non-pool home was $339,950. And if you go back 12 months, again on this graph, to July of 2023, the median price for this category was $352,745. So this off-water non-pool home prices are only down 3.6% on this graph versus those homes without a pool, which were down about 5.5%. If you look at the high mark on this particular graph, it was actually January of this year at $360,990, so basically $361. So we're down 5.8% from there. But again, 12 months, we're down 3.6% on the non-pool homes, and the pool homes were down 5.5%. I think the entire reason for that is just the fact that, pools are a luxury. And when the economy tightens a little bit, people have to make those decisions. The first thing that goes is the luxury item. So people are paying just a little bit less from what for pool homes these days than they were this time last year, and I think that's entirely a function of you know, the overall consumer tightening their belts a little bit. So we'll continue to see this. Still a pretty clear advantage to having a pool versus not having a pool. Plenty of people that want to live here in Southwest Florida want to have their pool, so if they can afford it and that's a possibility for them, they're definitely going to pay a premium for that. But I just thought that was a very interesting segment of this off-water single-family home market. So let's get into the next category. So this is everyone's favorite, and that's the Gulf access single-family home. So let's dive right into that. All right, so let's talk about Gulf access single-family homes. So basically, we're talking about single-family homes that are on a saltwater canal or maybe even the river, someplace where you've got boating access out to the Gulf of Mexico. And that's certainly one of our big highlights here in the Cape Coral real estate market. We're very well known for our Gulf access canals. People come from all over the world that want to have that saltwater front property here in Cape Coral. So let's keep the same pattern going. I'm going to talk about how many sales that we had last month. Unsurprisingly, since this is a higher dollar property category, we see a lot more of the sales of these properties in the winter months in our main quote-unquote buying season. So basically, I like to call it, you know, after January 1st through, you know, May, basically. And if you take a look at this graph, this 2-year graph on the number of monthly sales, that's pretty apparent. But we still sold 59 single-family Gulf access homes last month in July 2024. That's down from the previous month. June's number was 74. And our 2-year high in terms of the number of Gulf access homes that sold in the given month, the 2-year high on this graph was May of this year. We sold 109 Gulf access homes in May of 2024. And if you take it back just 12 months to where we were in July of 2023, we sold 61 homes in July of 2023 last year. So we're just down a couple from where we were last year, and we're pretty on par there. If you go back 2 years, it was also 61. So we're not terribly different than we have been for the last couple of years here in the middle of summer. But you know, keeping that same pattern where we looked at the first 7 months of last year compared to the first 7 months of this year, January through July of 2023, we sold 550 Gulf access single-family homes in the city of Cape Coral. And January through July of 2024, so far this year, we've sold 579. So we've sold about 29 more of these homes this year versus this time last year. So that represents about a 5.3% increase. So again, just like the off-water single-family homes, just like the broader market in general, we're selling at just a bit more properties this year versus last year. So I think that's a good overall sign for this market, and we'll continue to keep an eye on this. But let's jump over to median price, because we're seeing something just a little bit different on these Gulf access single-family homes versus a lot of the other markets. So take a look at this graph. This is the median price graph for all Gulf access single-family homes in the entire city of Cape Coral. So again, we're going back 2 years. The median price last month in July of 2024 for this category was $750,000. That's right down the middle. That's up actually from June's median price, which was $717,500. So we're up a little bit. You can tell on this graph. I mean, when you're talking about only selling 53 homes in a given month, your sample size is pretty small. So that median price is going to swing up and down quite a bit, and that's what you're seeing here. I think we can take out that October of 2022, which is the high mark on this graph. That was right after the hurricane. We didn't sell very many properties in October 2022, so that could be skewed a little bit. If you want to take that out, the high point for this graph was actually February of this year. And in February of this year, the median price for a Gulf access home was $852,500. So pretty significant difference, almost $100,000 different last month versus the high mark in February of 2024. But if you look at this graph, again, going back 2 years, if we try to average these numbers out, because again, that median price goes up and down in any given month because the sample size is so small. What I did was I took the average of all the median prices in a given segment of the year. So again, talking about January through July of 2023, if you take all of those monthly median prices, combine them all together, and then divide by the 7 months to get an average, the average of the median, so to speak, in the first 7 months of 2023 was 767,857. If you did that same metric for this year, the first 7 months of 2024, and took the averages of, or the average of the medians of those monthly numbers, you come out to 786,357. So believe it or not, unlike a lot of the other categories, the median prices for these Gulf access homes are actually a little bit more this year than they were, in last year in 2023. I don't necessarily think that that's because that market is increasing. I don't think prices are going up. I think people are spending roughly the same amount of money, maybe just a slightly bit more money, but they're getting a lot better quality property than they were 12 or 24 months ago. So even though this median sale price is up at 786,357 for the average, or the median price for July at $750,000, again, I don't think that necessarily translates to Gulf access home prices are going up. I think people are buying a better quality home for roughly the same price. If hopefully that makes sense. Certainly, I don't think we're better price-wise this year than we were last year. If anything, we're maybe a little bit flat, but I think a better quality property is being bought for roughly the same amount of money. So those Gulf access home buyers out there, they've got their certain budget of what they want to spend. They're going to spend it this year, same as last year. But they're going to buy a little bit better property for it because their choices are a lot more. There's a lot more inventory. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that, but I thought that was a very interesting statistic. So let's jump over to the inventory of Gulf access homes. So the active listings that are out there on the open market. Again, this graph looks a lot like that last graph that we looked at with the off-water single-family homes, but basically the inventory, the number of homes that were listed for sale last month in July 2024 was 746, which again, we're seeing a downward trend from the high, which was February of this year. The high point for inventory was February 2024 on this 2-year graph. We had 905 of these properties for sale in February. So we're down a full 17.6% in inventory from that high mark in February. You saw, basically 2 years until this early spring, those inventory numbers were climbing. And a lot of us were getting pretty nervous about it, but they kind of broke right around that, early to mid-spring mark. And now we're seeing the downward trend. So we're still very, very high on inventory numbers. 746 represents a 32% increase from where we were this time last year. July of 2023, we only had 565 of these homes on the market. So we're up, a full 32% from 12 months ago. If you take it all the way back in July of 2022, there's only 500 properties on the market back then. So we're up 49.2% in terms of inventory versus July of 2022, 2 years ago. So we've got some more ground to make up. We've got some work to do still, but we're heading in the right direction on these inventory numbers. And we'll probably see that continue. We'll continue to see some inventory decreases. A lot of properties are coming off the market. Properties are certainly selling as well, or sort of outpacing. The number of properties that are going off the market versus the number that are going on in any given week are generally they're generally outpacing the new properties that are coming off the market. So we'll probably continue to see that inventory number tick down for the remaining months of the year, and then it may tick back up a little bit as we go into the main buying season. Inventory always kind of gets up a little bit as we get into the winter season, just because we sell more of these properties during the winter and the spring. So we'll keep an eye on this, and I'll be sure to let you know what these numbers are doing every single month here on the Cape Coral Real Estate Market Update. So with that being said, let's get over to condos. Again, condos are taking a little bit of a beating right now, as I've mentioned in the last few months. So let's dive right into those numbers on condos. Okay, so let's talk about the condos and townhomes in the Cape Coral real estate market. And this category is similar to Gulf access single-family homes, just in the sense that we see a lot more of these properties sell in the winter and spring season versus the summer. It's just the nature of, a lot of these condo buyers are seasonal residents. and they're a lot more active in that winter spring season when they're down here. The snowbirds are down here versus in the summertime when they are enjoying themselves up in the northern states. So that being said, this year's been no different. Take a look at this 2-year graph in terms of the number of monthly sales. We only sold 37 total condos and townhomes last month in July of 2024. That's down from the previous month. We sold 40 in June, and back in May we were at 43. The high point of this year was, not surprisingly, in March. We sold 73 properties in March, so we're almost half of what we were at that high point. But if you take a look at this 2-year graph, I mean, we're actually doing a little bit better than we were in July of 2023 in terms of the number of sales. We had 37 last month. We had only 31 in July of 2023. But you go back 2 years ago, we sold 51 condos and townhomes in July of 2022. So let's talk about that same metric we've been talking about there, where we're going to the first 7 months of the year versus the first 7 months of last year. So January through July of 2023, we sold 336 condos, and January through July of this year, so far in 2024, we've only sold 329 condos. So this is the first category that we've gotten to where we've actually sold fewer condos, fewer units this year versus the same first 7 months last year. So condos are just a little bit in a tougher position right now. I think that mostly has to do with we saw some fairly significant increases in the monthly or quarterly condo fees as we crossed the year from 2023 to 2024. That has a lot to do with insurance rates going up, communities rebuilding reserves after they may have been depleted from the hurricane, and also some new requirements from the state in terms of certain reserves that they have to hold back. If they were 3 or more stories, there were some new regulations in place after that big condo collapse down in Surfside 2-3 years ago. So I think that's the main reason behind the decrease in the number of sales this year versus last year, unlike we've seen in a lot of these other categories. So it's really, we only sold 7 condos fewer this year. We're pretty much on par from where we were last year, but since we don't sell as many of these, that represents about a 2.1% decrease in sales versus last year. Now let's look over at the median price for condos, because this is a little bit of a more evident difference this year versus last year. But take a look at this graph, 2-year graph again. Median price last month in July of 2024 was $277,000. That's up slightly from June. Median price in June was $262,500. But nevertheless, the high point on this graph, if you take out November of 2022, I'm not counting that really because it's a really wonky month because we were still dealing with the hurricane. So a few more of there wasn't very many sales that month to begin with, but the few that were a little bit higher. So take that month out of the equation, and the high point on this 2-year chart was actually April of 2023, when the median condo and townhome price was $305,000. So if you take that high point versus what we did last month in July of 2024, represents about a 9.2% decrease in median sale price. And again, stack on that inflation on top of that, we're probably north of 20% in terms of the actual correction of this condo market. So I think, condos are going to continue to suffer a little bit. It's going to be a slow remainder of the year for condos. And hopefully when these interest rates starts to come back down starting next month, maybe we'll get a little bit of a shot in the arm for the entire market, but certainly for condos. And we'll sell a few more of these condos, and maybe our pricing will level off a little bit as we get into the main buying and selling season of these condos, which is basically after January 1st, 2025. So we'll continue to keep an eye on these things. But yeah, condos are just pretty tough right now, and they'll probably continue to be for the remainder of this year. If we take a look over at the inventory, here's the inventory graph. So the active number of condos for sale out there on the market right now. Same kind of pattern. We hit a high mark in February of this year at 527 of these. Last month in July of 2024, we only had 451. So we're down about 14.5%, 14.4% reduction in inventory from that high mark in February, but we're still up 22.6% from July of 2023. There were only 368 condos on the market back then in July of 2023. And if you take it all the way back to July of 2022, there was only 205 condos on the market. So we're up well over double. We're up 120% in terms of the active inventory just this last month, up to 120% from where we were 24 months ago. So that's just part of the reason that we're seeing these softer condo prices. Still got a lot of inventory out there. Again, we're heading in the right direction. We'll probably continue to see those tick down for the remaining months of the year, and then maybe level off and tick back up a little bit as more condos come on the market in the first few months of next year, or as we get into November and December, maybe even of this year. So we'll keep an eye on that. And again, I'll report back to you on these monthly Cape Coral real estate market updates. But nevertheless, condos just a little bit tough right now. If you are a condo seller, you need to really price that property adequately, because you're competing with a lot of other ones out there, and there's not a whole lot of condo buyers in the market, especially right now here in the middle of the summer. So that really takes care of the residential categories. I do want to reach over and hit vacant lots really briefly. So let's get into these vacant lots. All right, so vacant residential lots. I'm only talking about residential single-family home lots. I'm not going to talk about multifamily or commercial, and I'm specifically talking about off-water vacant residential lots. I'll briefly mention the Gulf Access stats here in a minute, but the predominant lot market right now are these off-water single-family home lots. So let's take a look at the 2-year graph in terms of monthly sales. This one's kind of been all over the place as well. We had 81 of these vacant lot sales in the month of July of 2024. So last month we had 81, which is actually less than half of where we were last year. July of 2023, we saw 169 of these sales. So in terms of the number of sales of vacant lots, we're down a pretty significant amount from where we were 12 months ago. I think that's just a result of a lot of these builders have discontinued their lot purchases. The new construction market has slowed down a fair amount. I think construction prices are still reasonably high, and they're getting outpaced by the reduction in prices for resales. So it's getting increasingly difficult to sell brand new construction homes. And so these builders are just stepping down the number of homes that they're actually building, the vacant lots that they're purchasing to build new construction homes on. So we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown in terms of the number of sales, but let's dive over to the median price. So of those 81 off-water single-family home lots that sold last month, median price was $45,500. And if you look at this graph, this is in a pretty stark difference to the other residential pricing stats that we looked at already in this video. We're actually up in terms of the median price on vacant residential lots. We're up from where we were last year. So $45,500 was the median price this past month. July of 2023, it was only $42,000. So we're up 8.3% in median price from where we were this time last year. So the pricing has been fairly healthy for these vacant off-water lots. And if you go back to July of 2022, median price back then was $44,000. So we're even up a little bit from where we were 2 years ago, which is very interesting to say the least. Now, we'll see what happens as these sales kind of continue to go down. That the lot inventory has always been pretty high. It's a lot easier if you're a lot seller to just leave a property on the market, even if it's overpriced. So we're seeing a lot of lot inventory just sit out there for 1-2 years in some cases. It's a little bit different than somebody is selling a single family home that maybe has a higher carrying cost. They need to sell it to move on with their lives. These vacant lots, a lot of people own them with just cash, and so it's not necessarily costing them a lot on a monthly basis. They can afford to just leave it out there until they find the right buyer for it at the right price. But overall, 8.3% increase in median price versus last year. I'll touch on Gulf Access a little bit. Again, it's not a really significant portion of the lot market, but we did see 13 Gulf Access lots sell last month in July 2024, and they sold at a median price of $270,000. So if you're interested in that, obviously there's a big significant difference in the pricing of Gulf access homes from areas of the Southwest, areas of the Southeast, and areas of the Northwest. There aren't any Gulf access lots up in the Northeast, but between the three other quadrants that actually have Gulf access canals, pricing is significantly different, and it also differs whether it has a seawall or it doesn't. But $270,000 was the median Gulf access vacant lot price over across those 13 sales that we saw last month. So let's touch on the inventory, the lot inventory again. This is the inverse of what we saw in the inventory for the residential categories that we just covered. But take a look at this. It's exactly the opposite. So we had a lot more inventory on the market 2 years ago versus what we've got now in the vacant off-water lot inventory for July of 2024 was 1,180. It's a slight uptick from June's number, which was 1,145. But overall, it's pretty clear that our inventory has been reducing in this category versus what we're seeing in the other residential categories. And so we're down 35.7% in vacant lot inventory from July of 2022, when there was 1,834 of these off-water vacant lots on the market. So we'll probably continue to see the inventory numbers go down. The rate at which they're decreasing will probably slow down, considering we're selling a lot fewer of these lots. But we'll keep an eye on this. This is a very interesting category of the Cape Coral real estate market. Our inventory is in a downward trajectory, and our pricing is in an upward trajectory. So definitely a pretty stark contrast to what we're seeing in some of these other residential segments. Okay, so with that, I do want to touch on one more thing before we get into the advice for buyers and sellers, and that is the rental market. I'm just going to touch on that really quick on what our rental rates look like right now, because that is a pretty important part of our Cape Coral real estate market right now. So let's get into that. All right, so let's talk about the rental market, the rental rates in the Cape Coral real estate market. I mentioned that this is an important part of our real estate market right now because, we're seeing the inventory decrease in a lot of these residential categories. So, everything from condos to Gulf access homes to off-water, especially homes, the inventory is in a downward trajectory. It's not necessarily because we're selling more homes than new listings are coming on the market. We're not actually. The main thing is because a lot of these homes are coming off the market. Sellers are not obtaining the numbers that they think they can get for their properties, so they're wising up, just taking their homes off the market or condos or whatever it is, and they're either just living in them continually, or they're placing them in the rental market. And so as a result, even though our inventory is going down for the sale properties, our inventory is increasing for these rental properties. So let's take a look at first the inventory levels. Again, so this is a 12-month graph. Again, we looked at the for sale inventory and a lot of these other categories where we're heading in downward trajectory, but we're going upwards in these rental properties. And so there was 818 available residential properties for rent last month in July. July of 2023, there was only 649. So we're up a full 26% in terms of the number of rental properties that are out there available right now. And as a result, let's take a look at the rental rate graph for the last 12 months. The average, or the median rather, rental rate across the entire Cape Coral real estate market last month was just under $2,100 a month. So we're talking $2,095 a month was the straight down the middle, the median rental price across all different types of property categories. But if you look at 12 months ago, July of 2023, we were at $2,275 was the median monthly rental rate. And so we're down a full 8% just in the last 12 months. And I fully anticipate that number will probably continue to go down slightly month over month as we get more of this inventory of these properties that are currently for sale coming off the market and becoming rentals because these sellers are not able to obtain the sale price that they would like to have for their property. So pretty important segment of the market to keep an eye on. And again, I'll continue to keep an eye on it on these future monthly Cape Coral real estate market updates. But I just thought that I should touch on that because it is a pretty interesting and important part of this market. So with that being said, let's get right into advice for buyers, and then we'll do advice for sellers, and then I'll just wrap up with some final thoughts. So if you're a buyer in this Cape Coral real estate market, what is my advice to you? What do you need to be paying attention to? What do you need to watch out for right now, frankly? And, if you've caught my last few monthly market report videos, I've consistently said that this is very clearly a buyer's market. We've still got really high inventory out there. It's come down. Obviously, we saw that kind of peak out around the spring of this year, and now it's starting to come back down. Depending on what type of category of property you're in the market for. But you still got pretty much the pick of the litter out there. You've got a lot of choices. There's a lot more inventory still on the market now versus even 12 months ago and certainly 24 months ago. Interest rates are still a little bit high, but we're going to see those probably start to come down starting next month. So pay attention to that. Keep in touch with your mortgage professional. If you need a really good mortgage professional, certainly get a hold of me and I'll give you my preferred lender. She does a really, really great job. But overall, the other thing that I would say to you is just be really discerning in the type of media that you're taking in when you're out there, whether it's on YouTube or even in the comments of the YouTube or social media, whatever it is. There's a lot of folks out there that are being really negative on this market, but I don't see a lot of hard data backing up these folks that just kind of shoot their mouth off and say, hey, if you wait another 18 months, guess what? Prices are going to be half of what they are now. I'm happy to look at whatever evidence you have, whatever statistical numbers that you have that suggests that. But there's just not a lot out there that I've seen, at least. And for all for all indications, this market's doing pretty good right now. We're in a fairly healthy market. Again, we've sold more properties the first 7 months of this year than we did in the first 7 months of last year. So is the market that much worse than it was last year? I don't really think so. Our prices are certainly down a little bit because our inventory is up. But there's still a lot of demand out there, and there's still a lot of demand sitting on the sidelines. So once these interest rates come back down, I think this window is going to start to close on these softened prices. And we may even start seeing that level off and then maybe even tick back up starting next year, depending on what the Fed does and where these mortgage interest rates get back down. Supposedly the magic number is under 6%. That's what a lot of the professionals that I've been reading are suggesting, that the Florida market especially will start to go the other direction once these interest rates get back down below 6%. So that could happen sometime next year. You need to be really paying attention to that. But again, just be really discerning. Try to stick away from the clickbaity, emotional headlines of the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I don't see any indication of that. I don't see any evidence for that. I'm happy to look at whatever evidence anyone out there has that suggests we're going into this major downfall. And certainly anything could happen, a black swan event, a meteor could come down and strike New York City, next week and plunge the entire world into a recession. And of course, all bets are off if that happens. But, for all indications, you got to live day to day, and you got to, deal with the news that you're given, the statistics and the information that you have available to you. And right now, that information tells me that we're in a pretty good spot right now. Our prices are definitely soft, and you're in good shape if you are a buyer right now, much more than you are if you're a seller. But just, keep an eye on things. And if you're planning on buying in the next couple of years, you really ought to maybe start looking at the market now and decide if it might be advantageous for you to strike here while these prices are soft, while these interest rates are still high. So definitely give me a call if you're a buyer. We can get you set up on a buying plan. I'll set up a property profile for you, and we can kind of chat about that depending on what property category you're in. I would love to hear your goals and tell you a little bit about how I can help you out with those. So again, my contact information is right there on the screen, and it's also down in the description of this video. Call, text, or email me anytime. I would love to hear from you. But that's my advice overall for buyers in this Cape Coral real estate market right now. All right, so if you're a seller in this Cape Coral real estate market, what is my advice for you, and what should you be looking out for right now? Well, it's a little tougher to be a seller these days. It's certainly not, all doom and gloom. You've had a pretty good 4 or 5 years here as a seller, especially if you've owned your home or property for more than a few years. You're still in really, really good shape based on where we were maybe in 2019 or 2018. So you've more than likely still got plenty of equity in your home, depending on when you bought it. but it's just a little bit softer price-wise these days. You've got to fight a little bit harder for those buyers out there because there's a lot more properties on the market. And so what do you need to do as a seller if you are in a position where you need to sell right now? You need to price your property right, and you need to get that property looking as best as it possibly can. I always say, one of the best things you can do is make sure that if you've got a property on the market, that when a potential buyer pulls up to your, let's call it, a single family home, let's say, when they pull in that driveway, from the time they pull around the corner into the driveway and get through your front door in that first 5 seconds, they're going to pretty much know whether or not they really like your house or not. So make sure that that entryway is looking good. The front of the property is looking really good. It smells nice and it looks nice right when you walk in the front door. That's what I always tell folks. That's one of the best pieces of advice I can give to you if your property is currently on the market. But definitely you need to price your property right. You need to make sure it looks as good as it possibly can to compete with those other ones out there. If your property is on the market right now and it's not priced right and it's not getting any activity, you really ought to think about taking it off the market. I don't think you're doing the overall market any favors by leaving these overpriced properties out there. It drives up our days on market. It makes the market look a little worse than it maybe actually is. So if you're not serious about selling, if you're not serious about pricing your property right, if you're not getting any activity out there and it's for sale right now, maybe consider taking it off the market and reevaluating here in 6 months or something like that when the interest rates come back down. But certainly if you are a seller right now, get a hold of me. I would love to take a look at your property and tell you what I think that we can get for it. We're still going to maximize every possible dollar out of that property right now, and I can certainly give you some pointers on what you need to be looking for to make sure your property stands out amongst all the other ones that are on the market. But if you are a seller right now, it's not totally terrible right now, but it's not the greatest it has been certainly in the last 4 or 5 years. So make sure your property's priced right, make sure it looks good. All right, so if I could summarize the Cape Coral real estate market as it stands right now in August of 2024, if I had to use one word, the word would be better. When we started out this year in January, sales were really, really slow. We had watched that month-over-month increase in inventory coming into this first part of this year. And when those sales came in pretty slow in January, a lot of us were pretty concerned that we were in for a little bit more of a significant amount of trouble than we ended up being. Sales, thankfully kind of picked up in the later parts of January and certainly into February and March. And, in spite of interest rates being much higher this year than they were last year, mortgage interest rates, still we've sold more property this year than we have last year. So I think the market is doing pretty well right now, and I think we should be pretty thankful for that. Inventory is certainly heading in the right direction. We're certainly way higher than normal, and we're certainly well higher than we were last year, and I think that's why you've seen the prices correct a little bit. But overall, this market seems to be doing pretty healthy, and certainly there's no indication on the horizon that we're in for some big downturn. I know I read the comments all the time, and there's plenty of people out there that like to think that our market's about to fall off the cliff, but I'm not seeing any data that supports that, and I'm happy to look at whatever data anyone out there has that suggests that we're in for a major downturn. But taking everything into consideration, we've already had a pretty significant correction when you take inflation into consideration. I mean, some segments of the market may have corrected 20% or maybe even a little bit more in the last 2 years. So I think that correction was a healthy thing. Certainly our market kind of got out of control there after the pandemic because our supply was so low. But that's sort of sorting itself out at this point. And as long as we see those inventory numbers continue to come down and the interest rates are going to start getting down, we're going to see a lot more of that buyer demand come back into this market. And I think, pricing will level out and start to go back up. And that could happen, sometime starting next year. I think interest rates could probably get below 6% sometime next year. We'll probably get a couple of cuts. Next month and the later months of this year, but we'll just have to keep an eye on that. But overall, I think we should be pretty thankful as a real estate market for where we're at right now. It's certainly harder to sell property than it has been in the last few years, and we definitely need to get that inventory under control, and hopefully, like I said, that supply will continue to go down in the remaining months of the year. But overall, I'm pretty pleased with where we are as a real estate market right now, and I'll certainly keep you updated on if anything happens. Certainly, you know, nobody has a crystal ball for the future, and a black swan event like a meteor could strike New York City or something next week and plunge the world into a major recession. And of course, all bets are off if that happens. But there's nothing on the horizon that I see that would indicate that this market is going anywhere. As long as we continue to sell a really healthy amount of properties every single month, and that inventory continues to go in the direction where it's getting a lot more under control, I think we'll be just fine as a real estate market. Plenty of people out there still want to be in the beautiful sunshine and the waterfront that we have down here in Southwest Florida and Cape Coral. So I just want to thank you for sticking it out and watching this video. I know your time is very valuable, and I don't take it for granted. I know these are longer videos. Hopefully you were able to use the chapters and kind of bounce around to see what you needed to, but if you stuck it out for the whole hour, I certainly appreciate that. But make sure you're subscribed if you're not already subscribed. I would like to have you around for the future. If I can do anything for you, if you're buying or selling a property, I would really hope that you would reach out to me. And my contact information, of course, is right there on the screen. It's also down in the description of this video. And call, text, or email me anytime. There's even a link down there if you want to schedule a Zoom meeting, maybe if you're out of town right now and still would like to have that face-to-face interaction. Would love to hear from you. But thank you so much again for watching this video. I'll see you on the next weekly video here in just a few days.
Like and subscribe. Just kidding.